As we talked about last week, the State of the Union was this past Tuesday. Something I definitely wanted to live stream, but my voice had other plans for me this week. So instead, I listened to a large amount of that, took what I could out of that, and the rest of what we take out of that, we're going to be taking from the likes of CNN, because they're so unbiased. We're going to talk a bit about that, what's happened with that, and where we go with this. In a bit of a funny turn, immediately before the State of the Union, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that Trump's tariffs were not legal based on the fact that he does not have unilateral authority to enact the tariffs. I do disagree with this particular position based on everything that I've seen in common law, especially when it goes to the executive branch. But, the Supreme Court is supposed to do nothing wrong, so we'll go with that. But in response to, and again, right before the State of the Union, a very, very, very Trumpy-sounding person using a name, pseudonym rather, that Trump apparently has been using his whole life, it's the first I've ever heard of it, called into C-SPAN to complain about it. So we'll talk about that, what happened there, and where this goes with this. One of the big ones I want to touch on today is that a gentleman was shot and killed attempting to get into the Mar-a-Lago on Monday. They found a bunch of Epstein writings in his stuff. He had a shotgun, he had accelerant, and the news media is saying we have no idea what it is that he was actually there to do, but we'll talk about that, what happened there, and where this goes, and a little one from one of my alma maters, rather. A swatting attempt shut the University of Wisconsin at Parkside down for about 3 hours. We'll go over what happened there and the details that the public wants us to know and the details that they don't. It is going to be, well, hopefully all of this and more, but we're going to see how long my voice holds out. Smart Money is on about 40 minutes right now. But we'll see what happens for the day, what we can get through, what we can't, and we will see you on the other side of the title card, because we didn't start the fire. It was always burning as the world's returning. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Heads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. Sorry for the late start. I was actually coaching my voice to cooperate this morning because, well, about, I would say Friday night, a certain somebody in our household got a fever and a cold, and she passed it on to me. It's the smallest of us, so I can't be too mad at her. And she's wearing Grinch pajamas right now, as you can see in the camera. But yeah, my voice was completely wiped out for Tuesday. It's hit or miss at this point, so hi boo boo. That is Ed Jr. over there, smiling as usual. Yeah, she's a very happy baby. And because there are weird, screwed up people on the internet, and I am perceived as somewhat to the right of where people want me to be, her face will not be on the camera until she reaches the age of consent and can make the decision for herself. Agreement between her and her mom and I that, yeah, no. If she wants to be seen by the world, she can make the decision for herself. Right now, she can't do that. She's 7 months old. But in the midst of that, we do have a lot to go over here today, and not a lot of voice left, so we're going to get down into it as soon as we can. I'm going to skip my usual intros today, but I'm going to put the picture of Palm and the small human, and the irritating fuzzball, who will probably show up in here at some point, because that is what keeps me going. Up on the screen. It's not on the screen. It's actually a folding picture. It knocked over while. Oh, now we are going to get the fuzzball.
Up.
Yeah, he doesn't like that thing. Oh, maybe he does. I have never seen that dog get on that ottoman before. First time for everything. Alright, anyway. We have got a bunch to go over here today. We're going to get started with it. Actually, I got to put one over before we change the news because, yes, that deals with the State of the Union. Where's the article? I'm going to put that after. There was a... Yep, that's the one. I was going to say, there was an Ilhan Omar one right on the top there, and I didn't want to make sure. I want to make sure we get to that. Alright, we're going to start with our finance for the morning. Probably do a bit of an abbreviated on that one, just based on, well, we're on borrowed time right now, so let's, do that first. It looks like the Dow took a big leap this morning, well above its previous close, but now it's starting to filter back down, back to where it started from. The Dow is sitting at 49,602.27. 120 points above its previous close yesterday. Let's get a refresh on this. Let's see what the news has to say. That's not going to give me any news. What the hell? Come on, people. You guys know I do this every Thursday. Everything was from 2 days ago when everything dropped. By the way, gas prices are going up, I've seen again. They jumped up, and then they kind of settled back off, and now they're jumping back up again. We have no news on Dow for the day. Not even from yesterday. Well, let's grab this one from Yahoo Finance, I guess. On the market today, Dow climbs, the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq slip as Nvidia leaves investors wanting more. From Ryan Howlett and Karen Fryer. U.S. stocks split at the opening bell on Thursday as Nvidia's stellar earnings failed to wow investors and left Wall Street juggling growing worries over AI's potential for payoff and disruption. It's always something on the tech side, too. You know, before AI came up, it was, well, graphics cards plays, it was crypto this, it was crypto that, and yes. Now it's AI everything. AI is going to change the world. I don't think it's going to change the world that much, honestly. Damn man, it says it's time to embrace the gravel voice. Palm says he frequently embraces the gravel voice, says he wants to marry it. I do, by the way. Very much so. Alright, let's keep going here. The Dow moved up roughly 0.4%, following solid wins for stocks more broadly. And Wednesday, meanwhile, the S&P and the tech-exposed Nasdaq Composite lost 0.2 and 0.4 respectively. Nvidia shares fell over 2% near the open, as the chip giant received a lukewarm response from investors despite being big beats on quarterly revenue and profit. The guidance also came in above expectations, but a lack of detail on drivers for the outlook, which doesn't include potential revenue out of China, left some Wall Street asking questions about competitive threats and the staying power of AI build-out demand. Fears of an AI bubble and the AI scare trade have buffeted stocks in recent weeks, with the technology's challenge to sectors such as legacy software coming to the fore. Salesforce share fell about 4% to continue an AI-driven sell-off after its revenue forecast fell short of estimates, but picked up near 2% at the open after CEO Mark Benoit tried to diffuse sell-off worries. You know, we don't have the news article up here. Why the hell don't we have the news article up here? I think it's because I got in a hurry. On the macro front, initial jobless claims ticked up marginally over the previous week. Well, Palm says distracted by a dingbat. Initial jobless claims ticked up marginally over the previous week, while continuing claims saw a small drop, signaling a somewhat stagnated economy as investors wait for the January wholesale inflation reading on Friday to help evaluate the odds of an interest rate cut, which I hope that we see. Again, not down to zero. I've always been nuanced about that. As a person in a position to do a refinance, of course I'd like to see a zero rate, but realistically, I think that would cause a lot more problems right now than what it would solve. I think our economists agree, and I think that our president does not. But that's where our markets are sitting right now, and we're going to get right into the meat and potatoes of the episode for today. No deaths today, a little bit of finance, but we have to start on the State of the Union. Now, I titled last week's episode State of Disunion for a little bit of a reason. Part of the reason that I called it that was the fact that we are very much disunified, and I do think social media does drive a lot of that. I do. You know, for a long time we only got our news from one source, and that was the only thing we could do, and we talked about it in the bar. We talked about it in our homes, in our coffee circles, and everything else. But now we get to have all these arguments all across the nation, and I think that it has driven people deeper and deeper into their pockets and their corners. And I think a lot of that was by design. You know, a lot of people talk about where did the divisions start, and when were we all united, when was this and when was that. And I still say that we were at our most united in the early 2000s. I know we were having a discussion about, you know, kids saying stupid things right now, like 6, 7, constantly, and one of the people in my Discord had said that I can't say it's any worse right now than when we were all running around yelling Dave Chappelle quotes at each other. And I look back at this, and I do think that that was probably about the time that we were the most united, had the most united front as a nation. Racism was nearly non-existent. In fact, the majority of racism I ever heard. I've told this story before. The single most anti-Semitic offensive joke that I've ever heard in my life came from the lips, and I know he didn't make it up, but he parroted it. From somebody that I know, that I used to work with, and I'm not going to name names because I don't want him to be outed in front of his little left-wing circles. But somebody that I know that I used to work with who has door knocked for every Democratic presidential candidate that has run since I've known him. You know, going all the way back to, he was too young for Gore because he was a little bit younger than me, and I was too young for Gore. But going all the way back to Kerry, John Kerry. Every single time a Democrat has run, which has been every race, he's gone and door knocked for that particular person. And he told me a joke that was so offensive, I cannot say it on YouTube. It involves Jews in a Volkswagen. I've told some of the people who are going to be listening to this joke in private. That will get me shut down on YouTube, by the way. Just so you know. But it came from one of the most left-leaning people that I knew, that I've known personally. I mean, you'd think, that joke would be right at home with people like the people in my Discord. Midget B, Errors, people like that. But realistically, that's who it came from. And, you know, social media started to make its rise under Bush 2's second term. And yes, there were other things that went back and stoked this as well, but, you know, coming back in and, you know, people being able to find bigger and bigger echo chambers that they can go back and bounce their ideas off of and get positive feedback for it instead of, you know, being out in a bar and not knowing who all agrees with you when somebody comes back out and says, hey, you're a dumbass. You don't say that out in public. Shit like that. And I think that's where a lot of the disunity started, was just based on the fact that social media was there. But it has come to harder and harder and harder points, and some of that is driven. It's driven us to get to that point, so people get reactive. We'll be, hopefully, if my voice holds, I'll talk about some of the reactivity that's come off of this. But I want to talk first about the State of the Union. Now, we've been watching these since 2017, rather. Trump's States of the Union, rather. And it didn't change much going back through the Obama years, through the Bush years. The State of the Union has become an extended campaign stop. Either for the incumbent who's trying to run for re-election, or the person who's trying to shape the party for the next person that person has hand-chosen to be the next. You know it as well as I do, I've watched Bill Clinton States of the Union. I have watched George W. States of the Union. I watched one HW1 on YouTube that I found. I've watched Obama States of the Union. I've watched Trump States of the Union. And I've watched Biden States of the Union. They're all the same. It's all a campaign rally. However, a lot of our more left-leaning friends right now would like to come back and tell you that this is uniquely a Trump thing, and he's treating this as a campaign stop, and he is. I'm not going to argue against that point. But let's read a little bit of what CBS has to say about it. Full disclosure, I am only about halfway through the speech at this point myself. I was listening to it a little bit this morning while I was getting everything organized here. But we start with CBS today. CBS News fact-checked Trump's 2026 State of the Union on Thursday, which he highlighted his record on the economy, immigration, and tariffs, and also assessed a claim made by Ab Spanberger during her Democratic response. I have not seen that response either. I've also, and I know I wanted to talk a bit about this week, the counter State of the Union. I think that fell flat, honestly, because we didn't hear a whole hell of a lot about that. We heard a lot more about Al Green this morning, which we'll be talking about as well. But I do find it funny as well, because they were coming up and doing this live on screen as they were going as well. That we never had to sit back and have a fact check about an Obama State of the Union or a Biden State of the Union. I'm not even going to lie. I mean, we talked about it a bit on the early chat boards and the early parts before social media about fact-checking Bush's States of the Union. I'm definitely guilty of that. I hated Bush. It's pretty obvious. Quest Fanning has joined us. Good morning. We have True, actually, from CBS News. Trump claims murder rate saw its largest decline in recorded history last year. Yeah. Taking D.C. out of account should not be dropping the murder rate that much. That's actually a little bit terrifying that is enough to bring our murder rate down that far. Preliminary data from independent researchers suggests homicides may have hit a 125-year low last year, although the FBI's official annual crime report for 25 will not be released until later this year. A January study on the Council of Criminal Justice, or CCJ, found a strong possibility that the 25 homicide rate will drop to about 4 per 100,000 residents, which would be the lowest recorded in law enforcement or public health data dating back to 1900. The homicide rate has been declining since 22, according to annual FBI reports. Some of that was non-reporting because it was inconvenient. Let's just call it what it is. The CCJ also noted that the reasons for last year's decline are not clear. Really? You put the National Guard in one of the most violent cities in the country for 3 weeks, and it's not clear why the murder rate went down? Do we need to get a statistician in here somewhere?
I failed stats. It's not me.
Let's see. But researchers say possible influences include changes in criminal justice policies and programs, shift in the use of technology, and broader social, economic, and cultural trends. Partially true, Trump claims that the past 9 months, no illegal immigrants have been admitted into the U.S. Oh, they've still got in, just they haven't been admitted at the border. The Damn Man says, did they change something in the way they recorded, or did they just do a really good job? Little column A, a little column B. Trump is likely referring to the number of migrants released by Border Patrol after crossing the U.S.-Mexico border illegally. Yes, that's almost exactly what it is. Over the past 9 months, Customs and Border Protection have reported 0 releases of migrants by Border Patrol along the U.S. southern border. That does not necessarily mean every single migrant who entered the U.S. illegally since Trump took office has been deported. No, it just means no more new. No more new that got a court date. Obviously, you can't count the ones you didn't see. Some migrants, initially arrested by Border Patrol and then transferred to the custody of ICE, could be released by that agency, although the Trump admin has sought to bar those who entered the U.S. illegally from being eligible for bond. Border Patrol's numbers also do not account for migrants who entered the U.S. illegally surreptitiously, without being caught by Border Patrol. Exactly, I just said that. It's unclear how many of these so-called gotaways have been recorded under the second Trump administration. Well, if they got away, then you can't record them. Overall, illegal crossings have plummeted under Trump's second admin, falling to the lowest level since '70. In fiscal year 25, still thousands of migrants continue crossing into the U.S. illegally each month. In January, Border Patrol apprehended roughly 6,000 migrants after they crossed the southern border unlawfully, government data shows. Misleading! These are fun ones. Trump claims more Americans are working today than in any time in U.S. history. Preliminary data from BLS shows there are roughly 158.6 million people employed in the U.S. as of January 26, which is more than at any other point on record. How is that misleading? But the total number of employed people usually rises as the population grows. About 157 million people were employed when Biden left office in 2025. So I'm confused as how this is misleading. Let me ask a statistician here. Is 158.6 more than 157? I don't feel like this is very difficult math. Economists generally rely on the share of working people to compare labor market strength over time, which has remained largely flat over the past year. The labor force participation set at 62.5 in January, which is identical to the rate in December 24, Biden's last full month in office. Meanwhile, unemployment has ticked up under Trump to 4.3% from 4.1% in December of 24. And then, of course, false not supported. Well, this will be our last one. Trump claims he secured $18 trillion in new investment into the U.S. I can't do Trump voice today. You understand. In 4 long years, the last admin got less than $1 trillion in new investment into the U.S. And when I say less, I mean substantially less. In 12 months, I secured commitments for more than $18 trillion, pouring in from all over the globe. That was the claim. According to the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, new foreign direct investments over Biden's 4 years did add up to less than $1 trillion. But a CBS review found no evidence the total commitments or new investments approach the scale the president has cited. New investment of $18 trillion would represent almost 60% of the U.S. GDP. The admin's own list of major investment commitments, made possible by Trump's leadership, totaled $9.6 trillion, which, I mean, is still better. And with Donald, sometimes he does this. And I hate it, but I understand why he doesn't. Where he'll completely blow out a stat fact check. And then the news media will go back out, run out to fact check it right away, and they'll bring back the stat, the actual stat, and it still makes his admin look really, really good. And I don't know that they would have even touched that if it hadn't been for the 18 million. And they're sitting here, they're trying to disprove him. And still showing that his admin is doing a good job at that point. Now, we will see where this 9.6 trillion goes. Because I remember not seeing a whole lot of that last year either. Or last time, rather. Additionally, federal data shows corporate investment levels are similar to levels last year, with U.S. companies on track to invest over $5 trillion in 25 overall since the end of the pandemic. Corporate investment has been rising. So that is where we sit on that. That is your fact check there. Let's grab a little bit from NPR. Actually, yeah, this is a live updater. But I didn't want to touch on this one. Just some of the takeaways that NPR had from the speech. Now, this, I do agree with NPR on. Excuse me, I saw that coming in. Should have muted the mic. I have a button for that now. Alright, the first one that we have here. Trump ignored the difficulties people are facing with the economy. Voters continue to say it's their top concern, but Trump said had no "I feel your pain" moment as he doubled down on the unpopular tariffs, criticizing Supreme Court justices sitting feet away for ruling that most of his tariffs were illegal. Now, I have no real way to gauge how popular these tariffs are because the people who like them seem to really, really like them, and I don't think that we're going to see a real popularity shift in tariffs until we actually see a tax cut come from them. Because right now people are paying, admittedly, as much as the market will bear, not as much as the tariffs are on these other countries, but as much as the market will bear, or putting stuff back because the market won't bear it, which is going to cause the prices to fall, while also paying the same level, or similar level rather, in taxes as they did before tariffs. But if the Donald is able to get the Supreme Court decision overturned, secure a large amount of tariffs and actually lower the tax burden, then yes, I think that they would become a very, very popular thing. And that's what NPR wants to come back and focus on with this. But yeah, I completely understand where the people are coming from who are saying that they don't feel like the economy is working for them. My God, I make a huge amount of money, or what was a huge amount of money 3 years ago. A huge amount of money. 4 years ago. This is a huge amount of money right now. And I feel like I'm barely making ends meet. By all rights, our household should be a solid upper middle class household based on the income of both Palm and myself. And I'm not going to give you that number, obviously, but there should not be concerns, or 4 years ago there would not have been concerns for a household making the amount of money that this household does. But we are still facing down super high prices, super high energy costs, and the fact that if anybody had to move or transfer, in the end of the Biden years, we're still sitting under an interest rate that we can't refinance ourselves out of just yet. So yes, the pain is there. I hear of all these good things that tariff revenue is doing too, like going in and paying off the food stamps while the government's shut down. Things like that. Paying for these social programs, but I mean, it's not trickling down to the people who aren't eligible or refuse to use the social programs. So yes, there is still a difficulty out there, and for the billionaire to come out and take the victory lap and say, no, everything is great, don't trust your lying eyes, that is going to cost in the midterms and beyond. So somebody needs to get into the White House and get that messaging changed like stat. The midterm message is what Trump talks about all the time: gory stories of immigrants causing crime and culture wars. It's a tactic long employed by Trump, but the GOP and conservative media. His message worked in 24, and he now owns the economy and has a record on immigration. And a part of the problem with immigration, again, NPR is over the mark, but they're not there. It's one of the hardest parts to sit there and watch them do, because they're over the target, but they're still missed. NPR has done a very good job of convincing their listeners that their listeners were never against immigration at all. And to an extent, yes, NPR was still, even back in the Union Dem day, it was something that was typically imbibed by the more educational, the higher end liberal, the white NIMBY liberal. It wasn't specifically for the liberal who sat in the union factory and voted liberal because his union told him to, because his union said, if you vote Republican, George W. Bush is going to send your job to Mexico. You know, right before Biden sent all those jobs to Mexico. But the reason I'm going over that and reminding you again is that the MAGA movement is mostly populated not by religious conservatives. They think Trump is a fool and an idiot because he's been married so many times and that's against the Bible. The MAGA movement is not populated by the, quote, far-right racists. Those people don't like Trump because he doesn't. YouTube, this is a quote. Don't ban me, bro. Those people don't like Trump because he doesn't name the Jew. The MAGA movement is and always has been specifically populated by former union workers when the Democratic Party took a hard shift into progressive politics and catering to the NPR listeners, to the college educated, to the people who vote Democrat because their sociology professor told them to. I'm actually a little bit surprised that I haven't seen a level of black backlash to that, but, you know, the NPR listeners, the college educated, do look down and give the bigotry of soft expectations to the black community, so they get free stuff. And again, the reason that I go down this road when I talk about the union workers, when they talk about immigration, is, again, that was a strong liberal point, is getting the illegal immigrants out of this country. Because back then it was, oh, well, Bush and his buddies wants to get a bunch of illegal immigrants in so that they can provide cheap labor. Now we have progressives saying, hell yes, we absolutely want cheap labor. So I can get my stuff for cheap. My avocado toast and shit. But that was one of the strongest positions that the union had, because what were some of the jobs that the illegal immigrants were taking under the Bush years? The union jobs. Democrats, take note, for any Democrat that's actually hate listening to this podcast right now. This is why you lost in 2016. And in 2024. Because you can recognize what your cheap labor does to the biggest section of your base still. There was no legislative agenda. That's fair. No laundry list of things Trump wants Congress to do this year, no surprise, given that Trump has spent the better part of the last year trying to consolidate power. God, you guys are morons. The Democrat response had a wide range. No spoilers, I haven't listened to it yet. I'll probably do that later today. Well, we're over 40 minutes, but I'm starting to feel it too, so. None of this will likely matter much because, politically, because the views of Trump are baked in. Fair. So that's what NPR took away from this, and that was me fact-checking them in real time. From NPC News, Minneapolis woman whom Ilhan Omar took to the State of the Union needed medical care after arrest. From Frank Thorpe V in Shara Ali and Raquel Coronel Urabi. Vong has joined us. Aliyah Raymond, a Minnesota woman whom Rep. Ilhan Omar took as her guest to the State of the Union on Tuesday, needed hospital treatment after she was arrested. During the speech, Raymond and Omar said, Raymond silently stood up during part of President Trump's speech, which he called Democrats to restore funding for the Department of Homeland Security. The people around her remained seated. When the U.S. Capitol Police approached and asked Raymond to sit down, she refused. During her conversation with the Capitol Police, the crowd around gave her a standing ovation, which Raymond tried to explain to the officers was a reason that she would not be forced to leave. Capitol Police took Raymond, who was walking with the help of a crutch, and started pulling her towards the exit, which was done for optics, by the way. A move that faced protests from one of the other guests in the gallery, who called on the police to be less aggressive with Raymond. No, they did that on purpose. Again, that was for optics. 100%. Raymond, who said in an interview with Amy Goodman of Democracy Now! That she was in custody of the Capitol Police and then the hospital until just before 4 a.m. I was not just removed and arrested, I was arrested so physically that two other attendees upstairs attempted to intervene, and officers pulling my shoulder. After I told them I have a torn rotator cuff tendon and multiple cartilage tears in both my shoulders, she said. Now, body cam footage would clear a lot of this up right now. Because I don't doubt, by the way, the fact that this was, especially since it was somebody standing up who had a crutch. I don't doubt for a second, or wouldn't doubt for a second, that this person who was arrested and taken out of the Capitol did so on the ground, screaming, kicking, fighting, clawing, and biting the whole way as she went down. It wasn't just that she said, okay, here you go, take me calmly. And then they threw her on the ground. No, I'm sure that she dropped immediately to the ground and then started acting like a possessed Wolverine. As soon as she was down. Would be my guess, and again, I don't know, wasn't there. And body cameras would clear a lot of this up right now. Damn man says it's almost like resisting is a bad idea. And again, we do have to take into account that I could be 100% wrong. She might have just come off and said, here are my wrists, throw me in cuffs, take me. Take me, officer. Take me away. I have done wrong. And then they threw her to the ground anyway. I just don't think that's very likely. Raymond said that told Goodman, the house surgeon-at-arms, told her she was arrested because I was standing up, silently, no buttons, no facial expressions, no gestures, no signs, not one around, standing up. Okay, do we have camera footage of this? I'm sure there was a camera train right on Ilhan Omar. They were probably waiting for her to do something stupid. There are only two things you can do at the State of the Union, and they are sit down and stand up. All kinds of people were standing up all night. Me too, Raymond said. She said in the interview that she has a torn rotator cuff and cartilage tears after federal agents in Minneapolis dragged her out of her car last month. When she drove down to street where anti-immigration protest was happening, Raymond said that she'd been trying to get a doctor's appointment. Again, would love to see some body cam footage of that. Capitol Police said Raymond was arrested on a charge of unlawful conduct, disruption of Congress. All State of the Union tickets clearly explain that demonstrating is prohibited. Capitol Police said in a statement the guest was told to sit down, but refused to obey our lawful orders. It's illegal to disrupt the Congress and demonstrate in the congressional buildings. Very true, by the way. I don't know that standing up is necessarily demonstrating, but again, I didn't see how the standing up was done. And yes, we do have camera footage of her getting pulled out of the car. So let's look at that. Next order. U.S. Capitol Police arrested Ilhan Omar, State of the Union guest, after she refused to stop standing and blocking others in the gallery during Trump's speech. Now, can we see a photo, video, something of her blocking the gallery? This is the same activist arrested in Minneapolis for using her car to block ICE agents on a street. Let's see what we have. I'm not convinced.
Is that this is an ongoing fear and threat for people around this country. What happened to me is absolutely not new in the history of this country, and we have not seen accountability that gives me any reason to believe this won't be done to somebody else. So that's what I'm thinking about today. And honestly, I'm glad that it's me sitting in that seat rather than somebody who's cheering for what happened to me. Is that this is an ongoing fear and threat.
Now, even Sorter using MS Now's footage off of this. Where's MS Now going to start their footage? Again, this is propaganda. This is propaganda 101. I'm not even saying ICE is in the right at this point. But MS Now is going to start their footage where she was getting pulled out of the car with absolutely no context. With the footage that we have in front of us, there is a 100% equal chance that she was sitting there peacefully trying to get to a doctor, or deliberately blocking ICE agents and shouting slurs at them. We don't know. This is the Nuance channel. We're actually going to take things that we don't know into account when we try to figure these things out. And I'm not taking a side on that one because literally I don't know. And until I see footage that goes much before what we see there, that's the position that I'm going to continue on. Always will be. Excuse me. All right. CNN has their takeaways from this. Throw some music back up. With a little bit of KK on top of it. Never played Animal Crossing, so I don't know the reference. I've been tangentially interested, admittedly. But I have not played it myself. Alright. Trump delivered his first State of the Union of his second term Tuesday night at the Capitol. We know about the tariffs. We're looking at potential military strikes on Iran. I knew my voice wasn't going to hold up for very long, so I didn't hold that one onto it. Trump's speech clocked in at an hour 47, breaking the record for length set by his address to Congress last year. That is one thing I've noticed about Trump, is every year he goes a little bit longer and he sets another record for it. Meanwhile, those of us who analyze this crap have to sit back and sit through it. Bah, bah, bah. Everything is great. I'm the greatest. It's the same speech that Biden gave. It's the same speech Obama gave. But what are our takeaways from this? It's an interesting one that I actually did see in other sources. Trump goads Democrats on immigration. Trump struggled to halt his declining political fortunes in recent months, but as he tried to frame up the 26th election, he turned to an old faithful, immigration. After gesturing at angel moms whose children were victimized by undocumented immigrants, Trump said voting for Democrats would be voting to reopen America's borders. We can never forget that many in this room not only allowed the border invasion to happen before I got involved, but indeed they would do it all over again if they had a chance, he said. By the way, it is still wild to me to see Democrats in support of illegal immigration, given the house I grew up in and how that all went. Then he did something he loves to do with these speeches, challenging Democrats to decide whether to applaud. He urged members to stand up and show support if they agreed with the statement that the first duty of the American government is to protect the American citizens, not illegal aliens. Democrats remain seated. Republicans, meanwhile, sought to emphasize the moment, standing up and applauding, after a long time, to show the contrast. Eventually, Trump spoke again, and Democrats told Democrats, "You should be ashamed of yourself for not standing up." Democrat reps Rashida Tlaib of Michigan and Ilhan Omar yelled at Trump, despite Democratic leaders having previously warned their members against outbursts. Elaine says super mega liberal. Welcome, Elaine.
Super mega liberal?
Yeah, that's what it says in the chat.
Oh, thought I heard my name.
Huh. All right. Trump often turns immigration out in election years. The issue isn't as strong for him as he once was, and in fact, he's quite a bit underwater on it, thanks to what Americans overwhelmingly view as overzealous actions by feds in Minneapolis and elsewhere. And again, a lot of that is propaganda. A couple of points on the tariffs. Trump didn't offer a repeat of Friday's angry broadside against the Supreme Court for striking down his tariffs. He instead focused on claiming he has great leverage with other tariff authorities, which is highly debatable. It's not, by the way. He did, however, make some news on the tariff front. For one, he volunteered that Congress shouldn't bother codifying his tariffs into law. Congressional action will not be necessary, Trump said. It's clear tariffs make even many Republicans uncomfortable. Given the fact that many of them came from the Bush era, I'm not surprised, because it was easy to ship factories overseas if there were no tariffs. Trump not asking Congress to pass something that has a better chance of passing legal muster was something to see. This suggests that Trump has not heeded Neil Gorsuch's plea for the American government to start including more legislating. Now, see, for Gorsuch, I get that. The problem that I have with this is foreign diplomacy, including tariff, is legitimately a function of the government. Executive, specifically. The president also said, I believe tariffs paid for by foreign countries will, like in the past, substantially replace the modern-day system of income tax, taking a great financial burden off the American people that I love, he said. Multiple protests, we saw about that. Showmanship, we talked a bit about that. Notable omissions, he attacked Democrats with the current shutdown of the DHS. He didn't mention the reason Democrats have held out. Immigration killing 2 U.S. citizens. He also didn't mention the ICE agency. He didn't even give much mention to his deportation efforts. He didn't mention the Epstein files. And he didn't spend much time at all on his prescriptions for the economy and the affordability, an issue that he still hasn't figured out how to talk about, despite it probably being his party's biggest liability. So, that is what they are seeing. How much more do we have on this? I think we're going to finish out on State of the Union after this one, because, yeah, voice is starting to give up. Let's talk Al Green for just a moment, because he made an appearance again. State of the Union erupts as Al Green is escorted out over anti-Trump sign from Andrew Solendar. The State of the Union quickly got physical on Tuesday when Al Green mounted yet another protest from inside the House chamber that prompted multiple Republicans to confront him. The demonstration resulted in Green getting escorted out of the chamber a second time, as in many years, he has been ejected from a Trump speech to Congress. Green notoriously heckled Trump relentlessly at the start of his 2025 speech to a joint session, which was rocked by Democratic heckling and walkouts throughout. Hakeem Jeffries had repeatedly urged his members in the run-up to the speech to maintain decorum, with lawmakers specifically instructed not to bring signs. As Trump entered the chamber, Green held up a sign reading, "Black people aren't apes," and remained standing as Trump began his speech. So, I saw the sign. First off, the way he was holding it says, it says from the angle that I saw it at, black people rent apes. Actually, when I first saw the sign, I said, I thought to myself, hey, where can I rent one? I think that'd be fun at a children's party. Numerous Republican lawmakers walked over to Green and confronted him verbally, with Mark Wayne Mullen attempting to snatch the sign out of his hand. Steve Scalise also attempted to pull the sign down. Mullen and Roger Marshall then tried to block Trump's view of Green, who was eventually escorted out by a House Sergeant-at-Arms staffer. But as he was leaving, Green stopped in the chamber and held up his sign directly at Troy Nehls. Nehls tried to vigorously snatch the sign out of his hand. So, the sign was a reference to a video that circulated around from the White House that showed Obama and Michelle as apes, which I did think was in poor taste. But it got a lot of people talking also. Green said, after leaving the chamber, I wanted the president to see it, and he saw it. I told him black people are not apes. What I'm doing is making a point to the president. So. Quest says Al Green looks like the Wolfman, odd for someone with hair right under his eyes. Is not a good person to make his point. Elaine says Trump is a liberal. Go tell our left-wing friends that. They like that, actually. They enjoy that. Alright. Trump's approval with independence sets a new low ahead of the State of the Union. I'm not going to go over that real deeply right now, just based on the fact that being an independent is getting harder and harder in this country. I watched a shoe video where, and I haven't seen the incident in question, but where a certain, I think it's a VTuber, maybe she actually shows her face, but a girl on Twitch who doesn't do political content was forced by her audience to say fuck ICE. And when she wouldn't do it, then they started calling her a right-wing nutjob. Which she eventually did come out and cave to the mob, but, I mean, there's probably a sentiment deep inside saying, I didn't want to be involved in this, and you made me be involved in this. Why are you making me be involved in this? But yeah, the independent side is just, it's getting fewer further between. So we have that going on as well. Alright, let's move on. Let's see how much further we can get before my voice gives out. Or my stomach. I haven't eaten anything yet today. Alright, on the tariff side, Mike Pence, of all people, to be commenting. Today's 6-3 ruling by the Supreme Court is a victory for the American people and win for the separation of powers enshrined in the Constitution. You know, except for the fact that that was one of the powers that was separated to the executive. In Learning Resources Incorporated versus Trump, our Supreme Court reaffirmed that in the Congress grants Constitution grants Congress, not the President, the power to tax. A tariff is not a tax. American families and American businesses pay American tariffs, not foreign countries. With this decision, American families and businesses can breathe a sigh of relief. I'm proud of the work our organization, American Freedom, has done in the case through a robust amicus brief program to advance economic freedom and defend the Constitution. Yes, it's very economically free. When all the rest of these countries are doing the same thing back to the rest of us, but we can't go back and do something to them. No, there was pretty much no reason, Vaughn. They killed him for no reason. I've talked about this before on this program. Many times. I have been in favor of tariffs, but basically to balance out the trade. Tariffs for that. Even back when I was in my 20s, when I was first starting to find out about how bad the tariffs that were against this country are with the rest of the world. My thought then was, if I were ever to be elected president, well, let's first start this off. If I were ever to be elected president, it would be because there was a gigantic nuclear war and I would be the only qualified human being left. So basically, I'd be presiding over an empty nation at that point. Because I'd be the only person left in the nation. But if I were to be elected president over the majority of the nation, as we stand right now, the first thing that I would do would say, hey, I want a list of every product and every tariff that is imposed on our country by another country. On my desk, detailed, itemized. And as soon as they got that to me, the day after that, well, it would probably take a couple weeks to get everything in and going, but in the following weeks, because there are a lot of countries, there's a lot of products. In the following weeks, there would be a matching tariff against every country in the world based on that product, identical to the percentage point on what that country is charging as a duty to our country. And if they want access to our markets, then they need to bring their tariffs down. I will treat them 100% exactly the way that they treat me. And yes, as soon as they come back and say, yeah, okay, I see the game you're playing, I'm going to drop the tariff on cars from 100% to 5%. I said, okay, your tariff's now 5%. Not 100% anymore, now it's 5%. You did right by me, I do right by you. But that's the biggest thing is, no, what we have going on there is not free trade. Elaine, I agree with you. That's literally exactly what happened. Tell Vong all about that. Executive orders. I haven't read that one yet, so no spoilers. That's on my list. I'm not that far down the list yet. It's actually going to kind of embarrass me if I open that book up and that's actually in there. Because I thought that was my idea. Alright. Trump is saying his trade deal is safe. I'm not 100% sure on that one. I did want to get to... Let's do this one. Trump announces the Supreme Court's decision on tariffs has actually made the president's ability to impose tariffs more powerful rather than less. Let's listen.
While I am sure that they did not mean to do so, the Supreme Court's decision today made a president's ability to both regulate trade and impose tariffs.
I'm sorry it's so quiet. That's what they gave me.
Crystal clear, rather than less. I don't think they meant that. I'm sure they didn't. There will no longer be any doubt, and the income coming in and the protection of our companies and country will actually increase because of this decision. I don't think the court meant that, but it's the way it is. Based on long-standing law and hundreds of victories, and even, as I was pointed out before, even thousands of victories over the years, to the contrary, the Supreme Court did not overrule tariffs. They merely overruled a particular use of IEEPA tariffs. And essentially, it's the use to get a fee. The ability to block, embargo, restrict, license, or impose any other condition on a foreign country's ability to conduct trade with the United States under IEEPA has been fully confirmed by this decision. So now there's no doubt.
I don't know about that, dude. I know that he turned around and put a global 10% tariff out, but... No, I'm a master debater. Fanning. But that's where he sits. I wanted to get to this one, especially. Because, yes, people are saying full out that this was him. So, I want to let you decide. I've listened to it already. I've made my decision. Apparently, Trump has been using the name John Barron to call into shows for years, pretending that it wasn't himself. And this is a well-known thing. I've been analyzing the Trump admin since 2015. I didn't know this, so I don't know how well-known of it is, but... Apparently somebody called in using a Trump impression. Liberals are saying it was 100% absolutely Trump. And then, of course, yes, this was such a well-known alias that he's always used. Listen to the clip. You guys decide.
Well, this is John Barron, and this is the worst decision you ever have in your life, practically. Jack's going to agree with me, right? But this is a terrible decision. And you have Hakeem Jeffries, who, he's a dope, and you have Chuck Schumer, who can't cook a cheeseburger. Of course these people are happy. But true Americans will not be happy. And you have the woman earlier, I assume she's a woman, she's a Democrat, but she said she's disgraced. She's devastated.
All right,
by
John.
this.
We'll go to Chester, who's in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Democratic caller.
I don't think it's him. I think it's somebody that's doing a very good Trump impression. But I think that's the way the person did, and of course the very well-known name, if it is indeed one, then of course somebody doing a Trump impression is going to call in under that name. Because it'll get people talking about it. Admittedly, it was a very good impression. But I don't think it was him. What do you guys think? Tell me in the chat. Master debater, yes. What are you guys thinking? Chuck U. Schumer, yes, that was a Rush Limbaugh one. Yeah, the pattern is there, but I don't think it was him. C-SPAN, according to the community notes, C-SPAN has confirmed that it was not him. Probably through a phone trace record of some sort, but that was our big talking point for the week. All right. We're getting to the end. I can taste the oatmeal. But I did want to talk especially about this one. Because this kind of goes back on to our point of disunion. And the point that we're getting at here. So let's start by reading what happened. Breaking: Secret Service agents and a Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy shot and killed a man in his early 20s after he breached the secure perimeter at Mar-a-Lago at 1:30 a.m. this morning. The individual was spotted at the north gate carrying what appeared to be a shotgun and a fuel can. I guess bonus points, it was a pistol grip pump. Some of you will get that reference, some of you will not. It's always at my left side. The individual, no Secret Service protectees were present at the time. No law enforcement personnel were injured. So he was trying to get into the Mar-a-Lago with a shotgun while the president wasn't there. That right there says something on that says Patsy to me, but the FBI, Secret Service, and Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office are investigating. This is the third major security incident involving Trump in under 2 years, following an assassination attempt at Butler and at Trump International Golf. Apparently, this is like the 5th time they've caught someone trying to get into the Mar-a-Lago. And he has been identified. The man who breached the Mar-a-Lago was a 21-year-old Austin Tucker Martin. His parents reported him as missing last night at 7:51 p.m. when he was last seen. He was shot by the Secret Service around 1:30 a.m. And of course, with initials the initials for Secret Service, we have some people already saying that Trump's SS has killed an innocent citizen just trying to observe with a shotgun and accelerant. Let's listen.
Shot and killed an armed man who unlawfully entered the perimeter at Mar-a-Lago early this morning at 1:30 this morning. The Associated Press is out with some new details right now. They have named and we have confirmed the name of the suspect, 21-year-old Austin Tucker Martin. According to the Associated Press in this bulletin that just crossed, he was reported missing by his family a few days ago. Investigators believe he headed south and picked up a shotgun along the way, and they think that because they found a box for the shotgun in his car. The FBI is right now asking people that live near Mar-a-Lago to check their doorbell cameras, check any cameras that they have in their yards, so they can figure out exactly how this guy got into the area. But it is now believed, according to the AP, that he might have piggybacked behind a vehicle entering Mar-a-Lago lawfully when the gate opened. For more on this right now, let's go to Fox News correspondent Lucas Tomlinson. He is at the White House where President Trump was while this all unfolded overnight. Lucas.
Good morning, Peter. President Trump was at the White House this weekend. He was not in Palm Beach where this incident occurred, and the Secret Service says they were assisted by Palm Beach County deputies who assisted in shooting the suspect, as you mentioned, named 21-year-old Austin Martin of North.
I don't know, the fact that the box was in his car tells me that there is something else fucky going on with this story. So from the BBC, armed man killed by Secret Service inside perimeter of Trump's Mar-a-Lago, identified U.S. media reports. Let's see, suspect name but not questions remain about motive. And of course, the usual liberal agitators on Twitter are already trying their whole, he was a conservative, this, that, and the next thing. It's amazing how quickly they can go back and find that. Officials are investigating if he purchased the weapon while driving from his home state, where his family are said to have reported him missing on Saturday. He wouldn't be able to. He's not a resident of Florida. That would be against the law. Map shows where suspect reportedly got inside the north gate there. FBI is dedicating all necessary resources to the investigation. Suspect named is Austin Martin, CBS reports. So just a little bit of live update with this. The fun part of this, though, from 25 News, WPBF, that's Palm Beach's local ABC affiliate. Epstein files, writings found in car of man shot, killed at Mar-a-Lago entrance, investigators say. From Terry Parker. Investigators are trying to determine whether references to the Epstein files played a role in the deadly confrontation just inside the main entrance of Mar-a-Lago early on Sunday. Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw said the incident happened around 1:30 a.m. when officials say 21-year-old Austin Tucker Martin slipped through the north gate as it opened to let employees out. A deputy and 2 Secret Service agents on detail went to the area to investigate, Bradshaw said during a Sunday briefing. Bradshaw said Martin was ordered to drop what he was holding. The sheriff said Martin let go of a gas canister, but raised a shotgun into a firing position and died for his trouble. At that point, the deputy and the 2 Secret Service agents fired their weapons and neutralized the threat, Bradshaw said. Bradshaw said Martin's car was left down the street, possibly near Midtown Beach. Inside, investigators found the box for the shotgun and writings that had something to do with the Epstein files. Show the manifesto. Show the manifesto. I don't believe you. Authorities said Martin lived with his parents in North Carolina. He worked as a golf course groundskeeper and drew and sold sketches of golf courses. A cousin said Martin rarely, if ever, talks about politics, seemed afraid of guns, and came from a family of Trump supporters. Always does! That was why I thought Patsy right away when they said they found the box in the car. Number one, because, yeah, it'd be illegal for him to go back and buy that in Florida. And I believe North Carolina has a waiting period. I think Florida does too, don't they? Asked Sunday by investigative reporter Terry Parker whether security at Mar-a-Lago would be upgraded, Bradshaw said it functioned as intended. It worked like it was supposed to work, he said, adding the combined presence of deputies and Secret Service agents allows them to quickly detect and stop anyone who breaches the perimeter. Yeah, this whole thing has setup written all over it. Alright, let's see. Apparently, Kash Patel is cleaning house over the first Mar-a-Lago raid from NPC News. Kash Patel fires at least 6 FBI agents tied to the 2022 Mar-a-Lago search. From Ryan J. Riley, Gabe Gutierrez, and Michael Kosnar. And if we follow up with CPS News, it's up to 10. At least 10 FBI staffers who worked on the Mar-a-Lago documents case are fired, sources say. Let's read from the bigger. At least 10 FBI employees who worked with former special counsel Jack Smith's investigation into Trump's retention of classified records after he left the White House in 2021 were fired on Wednesday, multiple sources told CPS News. The firings came after Reuters reported the FBI had subpoenaed records of the phone call made by Kash Patel and Susie Wiles while they were both private citizens as part of Smith's probe into Trump. The Reuters article quoted Patel, who alleged the FBI had secretly subpoenaed his phone records, using flimsy pretexts and burying the entire process in prohibited case files, designed to evade all oversight. The Reuters article added that it had not independently verified any of Patel's claims. Patel did not provide any evidence of wrongdoing by the staff who were terminated. So, he's going in and cleaning house. Probably a good thing. What else do we have? A woman in Idaho got in the news this week because she crashed an ambulance into a building housing DHS. From Thao Win at USA Today. An Idaho woman was arrested after prosecutors said she stole an ambulance and crashed into a building that houses the DHS offices, later pouring gasoline inside the property. Well, we got a lot of gasoline flowing out along this week. Sarah Elizabeth George, 43, is accused of stealing a Canyon County paramedics ambulance from St. Luke's in Meridian, a suburb of Boise, on Wednesday. According to police, George then allegedly drove into a nearby office building and poured gasoline in and around the vehicle before fleeing on foot. Let me take this down just a little bit. Investigators believe that George intentionally crashed into the building and attempted to ignite the ambulance and potentially the building. The Meridian Police Department said in a statement on February 24th. No injuries were reported in the incident. During a news conference, Meridian Police Chief Tracy Bastariccia said George was arrested on Monday after a 5-day investigation. The ATF and the FBI assisted in the investigation. It was good old-fashioned police work that got us to where we are at tonight. Bastariccia said on February 23rd. These investigators literally went door to door looking for possible camera footage, possible witnesses, and other information and evidence. No word on the politics of this person. Funny. They can find it of anybody who gets close to the president almost immediately, but somebody who goes after an ICE office, they just can't find. All right, from right here in Wisconsin. Grab one on the reopening from WISN 12.
First at 5, breaking news. The University of Wisconsin Parkside back open at the hour after a swatting hoax. 12 News cameras on campus showing just a few squad cars during that lockdown today. Officials shut down the Kenosha College around 10:15 this morning. Students, staff, and faculty told to shelter in place before getting the all clear about 3 hours later at 1 o'clock. The university says someone made a false report to trigger a large, unnecessary law enforcement response. One student we spoke to traveled 3 hours to the school for a track meet that was eventually canceled.
We were all just sitting in there, and then a cop came in and told us all to get out, and then we had to go stand outside for a little bit, and then he told us to leave the campus too.
In a statement to 12 News, the university's chancellor said in part, quote, "While these types of incidents are deeply unsettling, I am proud of the calm and cooperation shown by our entire Ranger community."
So, no details as to why the swatting happened, but given the fact that I went to that school, I thought that it felt that needed to be on here. Alright, some Discord news for you guys, because I know you love Discord. Discord is trying to walk back, but still do the same thing. Getting global age assurance was right. What we got wrong, what's changing, this is Discord. We can look at their blog for a second. I built Discord because I want an easier way to hang out with my friends online the same way I did growing up. It's still true today. When I get off work, I hop on VC with friends, watch them spend hours raging at baby steps or jump at arc raiders and befriend other players, blah, 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 blah. So when we announced our plans for global age assurance, I saw the reaction from our community. I didn't just read it as a CTO, I read it as someone who uses Discord every single day. And I want to talk to you directly about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what we're changing in your feedback. Let me be upfront, we knew this rollout was going to be controversial. At any time you introduce something that touches the identity and verification, people are going to have strong feelings, rightfully so. In hindsight, we should have provided more detail about our intentions and how the process works. You could have given a transparent spreadsheet of every step of the process and people would have still told you to go and F yourself. The way it landed, many of you walked away thinking we're requiring face scans and ID uploads from everyone just to use Discord. That's not what's happening, but the fact that many people believe it tells us we failed at our most basic job, clearly explaining. No, that's not what you're doing. Keep the Discord, our goal is straightforward, keep the Discord completely unchanged for the vast majority of people while ensuring age-appropriate experience for everyone. Over 90% of users will never need to verify their age to continue using Discord. You'll only be able to do that to go into adult channels, which is what I have all the controversial stuff marked on my channel, because you can get around Discord TOS if you're using the adult channel. I know Midget complains about having too many channels, but that's the reason that I have so many, is because then we can separate the conversations and keep the stuff adult that needs to be adult, and stay with the TOS, and then keep the clean stuff in the clean places. So nobody goes out and gets banned, and but now, you know, you have to upload your ID to get into the adult channels, and if you're in the regular channels, they'll just ban your account for hate speech. That's the reason they're trying to do it, and they're going to do the same thing. There's a community note on this. Where's my cursor? There's my cursor. Come on. There it is. Next screen is the middle one. There are payment links in the description if you want to throw a little bit of money my way. I do buy them used. Yes, I'm cheap, but they cost about 40 bucks a piece. If you want to throw 80 bucks my way, I will change my new screens, my outside screens, or my second screens rather. including the one that has no backlight on it. And then they'll all be in 1080. Not just the one you guys can't see. The community note on this says Discord still intends to roll out the change just later this year. The post gives off the impression the change was scrapped entirely, which wasn't evidenced by this article. Exactly. And in the midst of this all, they ended everything because, well, all their data got leaked and they got caught. They're also distancing themselves from the Peter Thiel-backed verification software after its code was found on Google Cloud Endpoint. Elaine says, yeah, no, this isn't about protecting children. It is indeed about going after and silencing the speech that they don't want to have on their platform. Because that's one thing that I know about people who like to be, let's be diplomatic and say racist online, is they don't want people to know that they're racist online. The bigger offenders that I have in my Discord, I know their real names because I've met them in real life. I don't feel that Discord needs to know their real names. That's between them and Discord. Elaine says it's about helping Palantir. Can we just call him the reptile? Who's that, Peter Thiel? I don't know if he's a reptile or not. I know that he knows about the Antichrist. I do know that. Alright. My voice is starting to give up. Let's finish some stuff up here. Oops, that's not what I wanted to open up. So we're going to finish out with a couple things that I hate. One thing that I like, but it's stretched across multiple articles. I just thought it was absolutely funny. But first, we do the rules of acquisition. You guys know my spiel. Ferengi rules of acquisition, the commandments of the Ferengi religion. Talk about how it can be used in real life. If it can't be used in real life, how it was a commentary on capitalism. And if it was in the show, how it was used in the show. But a lot of this stuff is from beta canon stuff, novels. And I haven't read enough novels to know how it's all used there. So we left off on... Oh, we left off on 177. Know your enemies, but do business with them anyway. So, 181, the 181st rule of acquisition. Not even dishonesty can tarnish the shine of profit. This is the white lie rule of acquisition. The little white lie, the stretch of the truth. Look, you go up to somebody, you want to go buy a Honda somewhere, you say, tell me what's wrong with this Honda. If the guy turns around and says, the oil pan leaks, the head gasket is blown, the timing belt rather is stretched, and all four of the wheel bearings are bad because before you got here, I took off the lowering kit for it. You're not going to go want to buy that Honda. I guarantee you that. But if you come back out and say, it's got a couple of rough spots, but it was used in a performance setting, so there are some things to go off it, you might actually go back, depending on how desperate you are, you might go back and say, yeah, I'll go ahead and give that a try. So, and then you make the profit, the person gets the vehicle, which they get to go turn around and work on, and yes. Not even dishonesty can tarnish the shine of the profit. Now, realistically, a car like that I probably would grab because I can probably turn a bigger profit off of something like that if I can get the guy down far enough. And then use it as a moment to teach my kid. Damn, Matt says, I mean, it's a Honda. I'm sticking to Vauxhall. Which most of the audience here doesn't know what that means because... I know what it means because I played GT, or Gran Turismo. But that is a brand that does not get sold in the U.S. Alright, let's do a couple things that I hate. Oops. That's on the things I like. I guess I do have two things that I like today. Cursor, where are you? Oh, I'm going to get Elaine's unfiltered opinion. I like that. Yeah, I can see that. I can't say that out loud, but I can see where you're coming from off of that. I think it's probably more for protest and, yeah. Not necessarily to delete the people that do the things that they don't like, but to make sure that they can't get a job, get a credit card, and get their utilities turned off, because then they can go back and say, do you really want to be associated with X, Y, and Z? Alright, this is obviously on things that I hate, because you guys know that I have been anti-suicide for, well, basically since I stopped trying. I know my more libertarian friends are very in favor of doctor-assisted suicide. I've never been able to get behind something like that. Because I do believe that life is precious and sacred. But now we have got a 22-year-old Redditor claiming that he was approved for MAID, which I don't know what that means, when he was 19 because of chronic bipolar, autism, and depression, which means he's been on the list to deal with this for 3 years. And he can't get help in those 3 years otherwise. I got approved for assisted self-delete. I was in therapy for so long, I wasted so much money, switched so many therapists and medications, my therapist gave up. I applied to assisted self-delete when I was 19, I'm now 22. I got a call from the doctor today. In 4 to 6 months, I'm dying and I'm so happy. I got diagnosed with BPD and chronic depression rather. I was in therapy since I was 12. So more than half my life I was struggling and needed to get this off my chest. You need a different therapist, dude. No, I get that, Elaine, but where I'm also going with that is it's not the same as going and putting a 10mm inside of their head. Because you're still leaving them alive, but they have to watch as everything falls apart. And I've been there, and it sucks. Let's see. Next one, dying in less than 5 days, and I'm excited. Did they say that it was in Canada anywhere? I don't know. Community note says misinformation. The user applied for assisted self-delete in Belgium, not Canada. Belgium legalized euthanasia in 2002. This Redditor did not apply for MAID, whatever that is. Regardless, I've been against the practice for, well, again, ever since I stopped trying. I sat in this chair, this one right here, not in this room, but this chair, for 24 hours. In fact, there's a possibility I'm going to be doing that again sometime in the future. Working with somebody local over that. For 24 hours, to raise awareness and raise money to help people find another option other than going to self-delete. So yes, this is obviously going to be something that I hate. And it's government assisted. That's what I hate. Let's see, other things that I hate today. A fake ICE tip line reveals neighbors reporting neighbors. Yeah, what did you think was going to happen? A comedian in Nashville made a tip line. Or he bought a phone line and made it look like it was a tip line for reporting undocumented immigrants. And found the worst of his community going back and using it. Someone anonymously to go back and report all the neighbors. Wondering why it was going to happen that way. I think he thought he was going to see a lot of boobs. People using the thing in protest, honestly. Last January, he had an idea for a new bit. He'd set up a fake tip line that people could use to report anyone they thought was an undocumented immigrant. It was darker than his other stunts, but it felt topical, kind of the challenge that he wanted to try. At the very least, he thought he might be getting a few calls he could talk about on his next show. And I'm sure that in his mind, it was all suspender snapping, toothless, Republican top sitting out there tonight. They came and dang took my job, man. I don't know what I'm gonna do about it, man. I've been calling down to the office every day, and they don't come down and do nothing, man. I thought he was going to get a bunch of that kind of stuff, and he was going to make fun of the evil Republicans, but instead he received nearly 100 admissions from across the country, people reporting their neighbors, ex-lovers, Uber drivers, strangers they saw at the grocery store. One tip came from a teacher reporting the parents of a kindergarten teacher at the school. Like, what did you think was going to happen? Elaine says therapists who support euthanasia are bad. Like, I don't like it even though it's the leftist position. I hate it. And it shouldn't be political. That's the problem that I have with it. Quest says in Canada they're actively using physician-assisted to save on medical expenses. Palm says for mental health reasons. I don't think that's a reason. Yeah, Quest Banning gave a short No, you did a double discussion with somebody else on homeschooling for that one while I was on one of my breaks, if I remember correctly. Elaine says, honestly, instead of helping you, they offer a way out. In Canada, that's the default position. They want you off the free healthcare. Damn man, so it's not the leftist position, it's the Satanist position. I wouldn't say it's the Satanist position, because Satanism itself is inherently atheistic. It's a protest religion. Alright, let's keep going down here before I get into a discussion on Satanism. And my voice gives out. And I can deny my oatmeal. Because, man, I want some oatmeal. Cursor. There it is. In the Twin Cities, the tenant union is calling for a rent strike. Pushes for eviction moratorium in the wake of Operation Metro Surge. Dude, if you own apartments in the Twin Cities and you're not Section 8, just sell them at this point. You're not going to make any money, and the government's going to protect the people who are going to be actively keeping you from making money. Yes, Camellia Peterson, that's correct. A local tenant union is urging Minnesotans to not pay any rent next month to pressure lawmakers to enact an eviction moratorium. Despite the White House saying Operation Metro Surge is winding down, its impacts are still very present as people stayed home from work out of fear of being detained. The nonprofit Twin Cities Tenants is leading the charge for the statewide rent strike ahead of March 1st. Well, good luck. That's all that I have to say about that. Let me know how that all turns out for you. People who view me as conservative would think that this would be something that I would like. But realistically, it's not. And this goes back to my complaints about the fact that we have to have these bathroom laws to begin with. New law puts Kansas at vanguard of denying trans identities on driver's licenses, birth certificates. Kansas is set to invalidate about 1,700 driver's licenses held by transgender residents and roughly as many birth certificates under a new law that goes beyond the Republican-imposed restrictions in other states on listing gender identities on government documents. The new law takes effect on Thursday. Governor Laura Kelly vetoed the measure, but the legislature's GOP supermajorities overrode it last week as Republican state lawmakers across the U.S. have pursued another round of measures to roll back transgender rights. This has always been the thing for me. And it goes the same with the bathroom side of things. Your bathroom should not be a political statement. Your driver's license should not be a political statement. And yes, putting your trans identity on those and going into the bathroom and announcing that you're a man biologically going to a woman's bathroom, it's a political statement on the driver's license. The point of having the gender on your driver's license is not so they can go back and check your pants and figure out what's going on in there. It's so that if there is a crime committed, they can go back and say, this says woman, this person looks like woman. We might have the right person here. It's not for you to go back and make some political statement of, I feel like a ZZer here today. Okay, that's number one. In fact, at that point, I'm barely open to the idea of putting ambiguous or whatever term it is that you decide to use, because a lot of the people who are running into this movement, you can't really tell one way or the other. It's the same thing with the bathroom. The bathroom is not a political statement. You go in there, you've got outdoor plumbing, you've got indoor plumbing. You go in there and use the bathroom that has the plumbing in it that most accurately works on the way that you evacuate waste. You take a leak and you get on with your goddamn day. Yes, there are going to be people who are going to go back and try to abuse the system because A, I get to see boobies, or B, I get to make the point that, hey, this is why this is wrong. Either way, on either side of that, you're making a political statement out of something like getting the shit out of your asshole. A government that can tell you how you feel about your gender, and this is going both directions, you leftoids, don't think that I'm favoring you right now, is too damn powerful. Full stop. I mean, what was my driver's license supposed to say? Sometimes I go out in my yard and pee on the damn tree. Confuses the shit out of my dog. What's my political statement for that? He sniffs that thing weirdly for like a week and a half straight. But why are we still doing this over and over and over and over again, people? You know why? Because it keeps people fighting. And a divided population is easier to control. Alright, and on the last thing that I hate, because I am a Star Trek fan, the Park Place getting the completely wrong message off of here. Telling you, no, don't give your real opinion on Starfleet Academy. Because the only people who are saying that it's bad are evil internet trolls, and you could end the franchise. Meanwhile, I'm sitting over here, looking at all of the inconsistencies in long-held lore that is older than most of the people who are going to read this article, and saying, let the thing end. I'm going to read briefly from this one here. Star Trek artist warns fans that review bombing Starfleet Academy could end the franchise. The debate around supposed Starfleet Academy review bombing has quickly become the latest flashpoint in the ongoing culture war between legacy franchises and their audiences, and how even longtime Star Trek insiders are weighing in. Following the rocky rollout of Starfleet Academy, the new narrative has begun circulating, one less focused on the show itself and more on the supposed consequences of fan backlash. Some franchise insiders are now warning that sustained negative feedback and so-called review bombing could push Star Trek towards another long hiatus, or even threaten its viability in the streaming era altogether. But that raises an uncomfortable question: if the current direction of the franchise isn't resonating with audiences, would stepping away for a time really be such a bad thing, or could a pause be exactly what Trek needs to recalibrate and rediscover what made it endure for nearly 60 years? Here's the thing. You went through a very, very successful series of shows, except Enterprise, where fans demanded 7 seasons at a time. Currently, you can't get people to keep paying attention to your crap for more than 3. And I know a lot of our right-wing friends, our interesting people on that side of the aisle, like to come back out and say, well, it's because the right-wing chuds just hate it and they think that Trek was right-wing. No, that's not it. To make a political message into something that has always been politically charged. Because yes, Trek has always been a political show. You have gone through with people who are dangerously autistic with lore and sat back and completely rewritten the lore. The black and white face aliens, and that was the thing that a lot of them latched onto with Starfleet Academy, is that, hey, one of the black and white faced aliens is in Starfleet Academy right now. That's impossible. They made themselves extinct because of intolerance. If you bring one of them back, you're going to tell the world that intolerance wasn't that bad. Bigotry and intolerance wasn't that bad. Instead of showing the message that you tried to show in the 60s, that bigotry and intolerance can push your species to non-existence. You dolts. And that's just one example of massive problems in the lore that this show has. And that's not me having even seen it, just seeing the trailers off of it. Alright, let's do a couple things that I like. The music side of it first. While we were on a longer road trip this past week, Pom and I listened to the Donnas for the first time. That's partially because I believe that Allison Robinson is one of the greatest guitarists of all time. Fight me. It was a little bit fun, and every time I bring up this band, I always bring up the same song because it's interesting what girl bands can get away with. And think, oh, it's just cutesy, she just wants him, and he'll eventually come around. Whereas if the same song was sung by a dude, there'd be helicopters circling his place. But still love the guitar no matter how crazy the lyrics are. And yes, the Donna's very well known for trying to be the boys and talk about their sexual conquests and everything else, all the things that all the hair bands of the 80s were doing. I like the music. I've always liked the music. I think you guys should listen to the music. These girls recorded from the time they were 14 until they were like, when did they stop? Middle 2000s? So then they were in their early 30s when they stopped. That's, I think, partially just because the drummer ripped her own shoulder blade out at this point. One of my favorite songs, I Don't Want to Know If You Don't Want Me Now, about a woman who likes a guy who doesn't like her back. And she doesn't care. She's just gonna pursue him anyway. We'll only listen to a little bit of this because, copyright. Pre-chorus, that's probably my favorite part of the song. So, just a little bit of brief background on the band. 4 girls about the same age because they started in a middle school talent show. And actually, I believe Allie Robinson and Maya Ford both had to learn how to play their instruments for the talent show. Like, they had no experience with a guitar and bass beforehand. After they were a hit at the show, they took the moniker of Donnas, all changing, for stage purposes at least, their first names to Donna. Their surnames, being the initial of their original surnames, Donna A, Donna F, Donna C, Donna R. After, I believe it was Spend the Night, which was one of their first grown-up albums, they dropped the Donna moniker and they just went back to their original names. But they are the Donnas. They are probably one of my favorite bands. A lot of hard rocky. If you like Pat Benatar, that's one of the big comparisons I like to go with, is they have a lot of that similar sound to that. Check them out. Spotify is a great place to find them. Alright, and the last thing that I like before we head out of here today. This is actually older, but I just found out about this literally yesterday. That the White House put out this meme in the barn of Stardew Valley with some edits, obviously, like that's not in your tool belt. Any of this in Stardew Valley. We're bringing back whole milk and making America healthy again, with the president down in the corner. Holy fuck, did people flip out about this one. This made a whole community mad. Which was always funny because the artist behind Stardew Valley himself always said, I don't want to be political in my games, I just want to sell fun games. Obviously, he put same-sex marriage into the games, but he also put opposite-sex marriage into the games. He put religion into the games. He tried to make it appeal to as many people as he possibly could. And people can go back now and mod it to make it how they want. I know. I found out about this from somebody who was making mods of No Kings and Black Lives Matter furniture that they could put into your Stardew Valley game. So, I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's funny. And I like Stardew Valley, so. But Creative Block says why Trump's Stardew Valley AI image feels so off. Because it's so right-wing! Ah! Reddit. White House post Stardew meme. Cease and desist order coming in 3-2 and it never did. Wonder what Eric Barone had to say about this. Which he didn't say anything about this. And yes, other people saying that we never stopped whole milk, which is technically true. We didn't, but it's been pushed down. I guess this is the same article. I just put it up there twice. I don't know why. But anyway, we're done. We're out of here. 2:02. My voice held out. It's a miracle. I can't believe that. You know, you can tell that I'm not used to having sounders because I don't use them. I always think about it, and then I never do. I don't know why. I need reminders that I have them. But I just get on a roll, and that's where I stay. Just kind of look back at this one here. I don't know. Anyway, let's head out of here for the day. I'm hungry. I haven't eaten yet today. Outro. Well, thanks to everybody who came by and hung out. I guess I held out for a lot longer than I thought I was going to. But I'm definitely feeling it also. So we'll be back here next week for more news, more headlines, more contemporary. If you got a prayer and you say one for Palm, going down to get some surgery taken care of tomorrow, so she will be under the knife and I will be in the belly of pro-government beast for the entire day. So yay, that'll be fun. Anyway, take care. Have a wonderful day. We will see you here next time for more news, more headlines, more contemporary. Hope you have a great weekend and, well, hope you have a great beginning of March as well. I love you all. Bye-bye. Take care.